Hi, my name is Michelle Whitfield, and I'm a deacon in the Methodist Church, and I serve as a clinician at Wellspring Renewal Center, and you are listening to the Happy Hippie Jesus Show.
Hey, Michelle, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are y'all?
We are doing fantastic. This is the first time Jeremy and I are in the same room while doing an interview.
And hopefully the last. I'm just saying. So, Michelle, since we're all here in person, do you think Jesus was a hippie, or is it just Bill wanting people to be like him?
Well, I think it's highly likely. I think that Jesus was definitely a social worker, at the very least, and probably a hippie.
So that's three now. 3 straight interviews where our guests have said that Jesus was a hippie. So what I'm thinking, Jeremy, is you need to start growing your hair out.
I'm thinking it's fake news and Bill's editing, but that's correct. So, Michelle, I have a bunch of questions for you. So, Not all of our listeners would be familiar with the United Methodist Church as a whole, and even those familiar with the United Methodist Church would go, "Deacon what?" So, why don't you just tell us a little bit about what it means to be a deacon and how you live out that calling?
Okay. What it means to be a deacon is that we are ordained clergy, that we do not serve full-time in parish ministry. We typically serve out in the community and are appointed there full-time, and I serve as a clinical social worker. And I am connected with the church. I serve during the week out in the community, and my specializations are trauma and autism. And then on Sunday morning, I gather with the Order of Elders in the Methodist Church, and I assist in worship, and we are all together on Sunday, and I bring to the table what I'm doing during the week so that people in the church don't forget the marginalized people that I serve.
Do you only want to associate with elders on Sunday? Is that why you only come together on Sunday?
That's the only day she can find an elder at work.
Okay.
No, I do a group at my church where I'm appointed during the week as well. But Sunday is a designated time that I hang out with elders.
Yeah. And I guess for anyone that's not familiar with the United Methodist Church, elders would be people like me and Bill who serve as full-time pastors normally. So I was really just making fun of me and Bill.
Basically, you're ordained Methodist pastor is an elder. Unlike in some denominations where an elder is a leader in the church. So, but it is a biblical term, and we like to claim it, just like deacon is a biblical term, and Michelle likes to claim it.
Absolutely.
Exactly. We want to know about this vision you have.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about your vision.
Okay. My vision is to start a wellness center in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and I'm currently in Little Rock. I work at a wellness center, and I really like the model of a wellness center. We combine evidence-based treatments with a holistic approach of mind, body, and spirit. And I have worked in Latin America before. Really just fell in love with the city of Puerto Vallarta, and my vision is to buy a property there and start a wellness center and serve in various aspects.
So what does a wellness center do? I mean, for the layperson that just isn't familiar with that terminology.
A wellness center can be variation of things, but the vision that I have is that the wellness center will be not just a place of counseling, it will be a place that the community can look to, and it has more of a holistic approach than just a clinic or a counseling center. And so there may be things going on there. There will be psychotherapy happening there for trauma and autism. And there will also be yoga classes. I've already spoken to people about doing that. When you walk into a wellness center, it's not a sterile environment. There will be a fountain. There will be essential oils. There will be all kinds of various things that treat the whole person and inspire the whole person for transformation.
There is therapy that goes on, right?
Yes.
So we can send Jeremy.
I'm not signing a HIPAA disclosure for that.
If Jeremy chooses to come to seek services in Puerto Vallarta, sure.
He's having some issues with Jesus being a hippie. It's throwing him off.
There was this, I guess the philosopher that once said if horses were the design of God, it would look a lot like horses. I think if Bill designed Jesus, it looks a lot like Bill. That's all I'm saying. So, tell me about your first trip to Puerto Vallarta.
My first trip was actually as a tourist. But God had other things in mind. I had previously, about 15 years earlier, done work in Latin America, which is the inspiration for the Wellness Center. And I had been in Honduras, and I'd been started this during seminary in Boston, and I'd been a part of an organization that does community development work in Honduras. And so I knew that when I finished all my training, that's something that I wanted to do. But my aunt had said, I'm going to Puerto Vallarta. I need someone to travel with. So I went there and I fell in love with the city. And I realized that this would be a really good place that I could go to and serve and do some work. And it's a place that is very welcoming to people from the U.S. and Canada. And it's just a mixture of people, and there's a lot of tolerance there, and people are friendly, and I just fell in love with the city and just felt really called that this was going to be the place where I would serve.
There are, I think the last statistics I checked, 2 out of every 100 people born have some form of autism or another.
Yes.
That may be dated data, but that's what I have. I'm a dated person, but there are plenty of clients here in the United States for you. Mm-hmm. Why Puerto Vallarta?
Well, because the people there are underserved. In the United States, autism services, thankfully, have grown and are readily available. Insurance companies have started reimbursement. There's a lot of education about autism. And when I first started working in autism services 20 years ago, 20 years in February, actually, there wasn't a lot of education. There wasn't a lot of funding. And I trained in Boston, which is considered the Mecca for services. But I decided that when I finished my training, I want to go to a place that was underserved. And at that time, that was Arkansas. But now Arkansas has many more services, a lot more training. And I think it was just time for me to go to another place, now that those supports are here in Arkansas, that I felt challenged to go somewhere else that was underserved and maybe didn't have the quality of services. There's a lot of evidence-based treatments going on in Puerto Vallarta, and so I felt really led to go there and provide quality services to families.
So Mexico is the new Arkansas.
Well, it's certainly humid and warm enough to be definitely, and the people are friendly, so I guess, yeah.
So I've never even attempted to do something like this. So how does it start? How do you set up a business model, and do you have to get special licensing to
Yes, you need plenty of lawyers and plenty of patience. Yes, my last trip, I met with a couple of lawyers, one for visa and one to get my credentials certified in Mexico. And so you just start asking questions. You start talking to people who already live there. You get yourself a good lawyer so that you're doing this ethically. You just hope and pray a lot and have a lot of tenacity.
Okay. Do you know when the clinic might open, or?
I am looking at a property now and am doing fundraising for that. I found a perfect property there on my last trip just a couple of weeks ago, and it even looks like a wellness center. It has a fountain in it when you walk in. It has just the design of it is really great, and spaces for various groups and yoga and different things. And so it takes about 4 to 6 months to actually purchase a property. And then I would want to do a few things to the property. So I would say next November, December. of 2019 would be the opening date.
I would imagine, you not being a Mexican national, there would be some hurdles you'd have to overcome just to buy property.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And that's where, God has connected me with a lot of great people. And my real estate agent is actually an Okie like myself. She's been down there for 28 years, and she's a straight shooter. She tells it like it is. You need to do this. You need to do that. She has been a real blessing to me. And then I have 2 Mexican lawyers who are advising me, and just various connections of people that I've met who are helping me in various ways. And it's just been a great journey. It's been a spiritual journey. And I think that the end goal isn't the only part of this, the journey with other people, even you guys being willing to interview me and get the word out is part of the journey. And I think it's just been a great experience, and a really one of transformation for a lot of people that I've met along the way.
How has this journey shaped your faith or your understanding of Jesus?
Come follow me. Drop everything you have has a whole new meaning, multiple layers, and a depth that I did not have before.
Yeah. Were there moments of resistance when you were like, I don't want to move to Mexico?
Yes, I'm still having those. I don't want to leave my little rock, where my sisters lived here for 30 years, and I know people all over the place, and leaving the comforts of home and leaving the comforts of, my first language and all of those things. But this morning as I got up, I chose a mug for my coffee, and it's Amelia Earhart quote that says, "Courage is the price life exacts for granting peace." And I know that I will have a peace about fulfilling this call, but it will take courage.
Can you say that quote again?
Courage is the price life exacts for granting peace.
Courage is the price life exacts for granting peace.
That's awesome. I have a really important question. This one's a huge one. So, where is the Mexican food better? Here in Little Rock or in Mexico?
Well, the seafood is better there, and the Tex-Mex is better here in Little Rock. That's my honest answer.
But they've got incredible tacos, though, right?
Yes. And the ceviche on the beach, you can't beat that.
Yeah, some people might not know. I mean, it's a kind of a beach resort town.
It is a tourist town. It is about the last place that you would ever expect to be called to serve. But what is happening in Puerto Vallarta is that it is becoming more commercialized and more touristy, as they say. And sometimes I think the Mexican families feel a little pushed out and left out. And so for me, I come to be a part of the community. I don't come to buy a property on the beach and push people away. What a lot of the pricing of the homes, the influx of people coming in and buying property has driven up the prices. So a lot of the Mexican families are having to move outside of Vallarta to the north and to the south. And so I just made an intentional decision that I wanted to buy a modest home, which of course fits in my budget anyway. I don't have a choice but to buy a modest home in a neighborhood, in a community of families, and to be there. And because the prices of everything are being driven up, I think it's important to provide affordable services to Mexican families.
And well, tourist towns do take a toll on the local population.
Yes.
So what are ways, as you've been several times, that you've seen kind of the local population be impacted? And are there any kind of stories of ways that you've connected with people that you'll be offering services to?
Yes, as I have been going down there at this point for 10 years, and over the years I have met people, and the impact, it really impacts everything from families trying to get services, for their child with autism. The prices are going up, And because of the influx of people there and it becoming such a popular city. And this trip, I met a young man who's 23 years old, and he had to drop out of school, was studying engineering, because his rent is so high that he had to quit school and work full-time and was not able to continue school. So that is one of the impacts. One of the impacts that I noticed, which wasn't there 10 years ago, is that developers are coming in and building condos all along the shoreline and the beach. And the local families, you can't even see the ocean in Vallarta anymore. And 50 years ago, that wasn't true. There were only a few hotels. And so that's how coming in is impacted. So I want to be very conscious of the things that I do aren't contributing to that toll that is taken on the local population.
And so you mentioned that before you went to Mexico and this kind of vacation turned life calling, that you did some volunteer work in Honduras.
Yes, I did. And it was actually taught as a course for seminary. It was my last semester of seminary. And I absolutely fell in love with Latin America. And there were so many moments that really impacted me deeply that have stayed with me and are part of this call. I will never forget looking up and seeing a 12-year-old girl holding a child. It was her baby. It was not her little sister. And that impacts you. And I met a young girl named Sonia, and she and I became friends, and she gave me one of her rings, and in exchange, one of the people in the group said she's looking for an exchange, and all I just finished seminary. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any jewelry with me. All I had was a pink cross that I had worn during seminary and made out of stone. It was pink, and so I gave that to her. And when I came back on my next trip, she was gone from the village, and I was told that she had gotten what was termed married. When I had met this girl, she couldn't have been more than 10 or 11, which means that at 12 or 13, and the phrase was put as she went up into the mountains. And so I didn't know, did she really get married or was she trafficked? What happened to this young girl? And I never saw her again. And that really impacted me and gave me insight into the lack of empowerment for young girls and just people in general in areas of Latin America. And so things like that have really stayed with me and inspired me. And I looked into going to Honduras, but it just didn't pan out at the time. And I think that given the political turmoil now, that probably would not have been a good place for me to go as a single person. But Vallarta, there are many single people that move there, and it is a city that is just more doable as a single person and has the infrastructure to be successful and sustainable for me to live and work there.
You felt a calling to go to and work in Latin America since you were 12 years old.
Yes.
At 12 years old, I was dreaming of being the World Wrestling Federation champion or something. I had delusions about my height and weight at the time. But at 12 years old, what was it that made you dream of working in Latin America?
Well, I was part of a group at my church at the time, and the group was called Missionettes. And we studied the work of missionaries around the world. And I grew up in Oklahoma, so I grew up alongside people from Latin America, mostly from Mexico. And so I had decided that is a place that I would be interested in going. And then through the years, as my faith developed and my call developed, and then going to Honduras really solidified that. But I realized that Honduras was probably, the infrastructure would be there for me to be there long term, and it wouldn't be sustainable. But then when I came to Vallarta, I realized this would be the perfect place for me to be that's sustainable.
That was honestly a gut-wrenching story, though, you told a minute ago about Sonia Can you tell us a little bit about some of the other people that you've connected with in Puerto Vallarta? Maybe a story that our listeners might be interested in hearing of inspiration or possibly even a need that to inspire them to support your ministry.
Yes, on my last trip, I went to a small community outside of Puerto Vallarta and got to know one of the families. In that community, there's very little education. Most people only finish the 3rd grade. But just seeing the people work and on the beach and really everywhere you look and talking to people and seeing them work for 10 hours a day in the hot sun on the beach, in the resorts, and they may make $20 a day if they're lucky. It's probably $10 to $20 a day for these 10-hour days. They work 6 days a week. Sunday is the only day they have to be with their family, and they miss many holidays. And I would ask a person, are you going to be off for a holiday that might be coming up? No, I'll be working. And they just looked at me and with their brows crinkle like, of course I will be working. And the things that we really just take for granted here in the U.S., they don't have, but just to see the labor there and that they're just living off nothing. What I just basically throw away when I leave, I may have 60 pesos, which is a few bucks. There's 18 pesos to the dollar. It's a few bucks. And for me, it's almost like throwing away a napkin. That may be a day's work for someone. In those harsh realities make me realize that how lucky that I have been, how people can be supported. People with that kind of income, they're not going to be able to have mental health services. And what about spiritual growth? When would they go to church and be part of a community? How much time are they with their families? And just the things that we take for granted are not there. And if I can be there and provide quality services, at a very low cost, I think that is an endeavor that brings hope to people and transformation. And that's what this really is about. It's about bringing hope and transformation and having a spiritual exchange, because I feel that in the United States we have a spiritual poverty, and people in Latin America have a material poverty. And so if you can have an exchange and provide hope in that situation, I think that the encounter grows people spiritually.
I once heard a rabbi talk about shalom as being balance, and that's what
Yes.
it sounds like you're talking about here.
Yes.
Is that coming from two different places, we provide balance for each other.
Yes, absolutely.
So what is the major hurdle for making this dream a reality for you?
Money.
Isn't that always it? Yeah.
The clergy person's hurdle, money.
Yeah, I think it's everybody's hurdle, isn't it? I mean, you just told us a story of everyone in Puerto Vallarta that is a native. That's their hurdle is money.
Yes.
Money becomes a hurdle. So, what are some of the ways that people can support you to make this dream reality? Do you have a GoFundMe page, or maybe are you selling lemonade on the side of the road?
Well, I may be doing all of those things before it's all over. But the main vehicle that I am wanting to use is that I write poetry, spiritual poetry, and I am going to publish a book and use that as a fundraiser. And I wanted to actually utilize something that wasn't just a donation, which, obviously if people want to do that, I'm willing to, but I wanted to create something that has a challenge of spiritual growth, that the person that purchases this book, they're not only helping this mission in Mexico, but they may also grow spiritually from purchasing the book. And most of the poetry is based on Scripture. I would really describe it as much meditations as I would poetry. And the story about the book of poetry, I've had this in mind a long time. About 15 years ago, when I started the work in Honduras, I was talked into sharing my poetry at a conference at Harvard Divinity School. And I was absolutely terrified, much the way I was when you asked me about this interview. And
don't worry, Jeremy does not bite very often.
But my friend cajoled me into sharing at Harvard Divinity School. No pressure, right? It's just Harvard. And so I did. I shared one of the poems that I had written in Honduras. And afterwards, a priest came up to me and he said, "Do you have more of this?" And I said, "Yeah, I do. I've been writing since I was 12, about the same time, that I felt called to missions." He said, "You really need to publish this." And so I kept that in my heart all these years, and in the back of my mind that if I ever got the chance to work in Latin America, that I would write the book and I would use that as a fundraiser.
Cool. Well, I can say first, Harvard is much more serious than our podcast.
Yeah.
You should have been more nervous about that than this.
Yeah.
I mean, Bill's family might hear you read a poem here, but...
Yeah, because Jeremy's family won't even listen.
They hear me talk all the time. They spend their lives trying to avoid it. But no, and I can say, you have an example? Will you share some poetry with us?
Yes, I brought one to share, and the title of the book will be called Daughters, and this is the poem, Daughters. I am a daughter of the light. This candle burns for you, day in, day out. Silently, sacred light. It burns for love, love of God, love of peace, children, your sons, your daughters, love of those on the edge of the light. This light burns, in spite of all wind from the fiery one that might quench it. It burns for the divine. It burns for the healing of those in the tombs. It burns with the power of God, and she was healed from that very hour.
You may not know this about me, but I was in a punk band when I was in college, and thankfully no evidence exists anymore. But what I learned during that time, because I wrote a lot of the songs, is every song or poem has a story. So
Yes.
Can you share the story of that poem with us?
Yes. My image of God is as light, and my spiritual journey, my spiritual devotion is that I am a daughter of the light. And so that is my symbol of God, and that is really has deep meaning for me, that my journey is as a daughter of the light. And a lot of the poetry in the book is based on scriptures, and this poem, The Healing of Those in the Tombs, is a reference to when Christ went into the tombs and the man was so mentally ill that he had disrobed and was clawing at himself with stones. And Christ healed him and brought him peace and transformation. And the other reference, she was healed that very hour, is a reference to when the passage when the Canaanite woman challenges Christ and says, she was trying to get her daughter healed, heal my daughter, and she was trying to follow Christ. And the disciples were shooing her away and saying, "Get away." And Christ says, that the bread is for the children, it's not for the little dogs. It's not for the foreigner. It's not for someone who's not like us. And she challenges Christ, and she says, "Well, don't even the little dogs eat the crumbs from the master's table?" And that's when he says, your faith has made you well, and your daughter was healed from that very hour.
I love that passage because we focus a lot on the divinity of Christ and we forget the humanity of Christ. And here is Christ being taught by someone. And that's another part of that balance that we were talking about just a moment ago, that everybody has something to teach us.
Absolutely. And I think that humility is important for me when I go to Mexico, that this truly is a spiritual exchange. It is about hope and transformation, not that I am bringing my Boston University education and telling these people how they should do things. This is truly an exchange, and I go in humility to serve and also to learn and to be taught. And I'm sure that I will be served as well, that there are things that I need to learn and things that people will bring to me that will be absolutely transformational.
This is a long process for you.
Yes.
From start to finish. I'm curious, how have you stayed connected to your vision and kept your passion through the whole process? Because Bill starts a diet in the morning, and then he already gets frustrated and quits by, mid-afternoon.
Well, God sends people my way on the journey to keep me inspired, to keep me encouraged. The Wellness Center, I will call La Mariposa, which is the butterfly. The butterfly comes and goes. You don't know when the butterfly is going to come and go. And when I was in Honduras, there was a white butterfly that in the midst of all the suffering I was seeing, the butterfly followed us into the mountains to the community. And St. Teresa of Avila writes about the white butterfly being the soul, an image for the soul. And so during my journey, literal butterflies come and remind me, okay, that call is still happening. And when I get bogged down in the day-to-day muck, those butterflies remind me, and then there are people along the way who act as una mariposa, a butterfly that reminds me, don't forget about this call. And I meet people and they tell me their story, of the young man who can't finish college. And I see, the women getting on the bus with their children and the girls who don't even think about going to college until I say, hey, what do you think about going to college? And then my brothers and sisters, in the Methodist Church have supported me and remind me not to give up, and people who've believed in me when other people might not. And so that is how I have kept this vision and this calling alive. And I think just the Holy Spirit, when I feel like giving up, when I feel discouraged, always sends me someone or some event to remind me. And I think that unexpected beauty that comes just when I'm feeling down is like the butterfly. It's unexpected, it's beautiful, and it's leading. And if you notice during the fall, the monarch butterflies actually come through Little Rock, and they're on their way to Mexico. And it reminds me, don't give up. You're going to make it.
This, I think, has to be a Holy Spirit moment, because you may not know this, but Jeremy is known as the white butterfly throughout the conference.
Well, what do you know?
I think that just happened. Luckily, only Bill's family will hear this and call me the white butterfly. So.
Hey, the Holy Spirit, God works in mysterious ways. It does. And I hope that's an inspiration for you to keep going, to know that the white butterfly is supporting you.
Oh, gosh. Once we stop laughing about the white butterfly, you talked about some beautiful things there that I think really kind of fit into our faith and the idea that God is with us and moving among us now. So I'm going to give you just a minute or two. You can describe what faith means to you, or what it means to say God is with us now.
Faith means to me, I know I've used a lot of what some may consider flowery language, but faith means to me that God is faithful no matter what mood I'm in, no matter what mood the people around me are in, no matter if things are going well or things are not going well. And faith means to me that God loved us enough, that God's Son came down, and Christ was with us. And whether some see Christ the King image or Christ as a happy hippie, that God loved us enough to send someone down to teach us. And for me, faith means that through the good and the bad. And my history as a child, I had a lot of challenges. Growing up, lost my mother when I was 25. And so faith to me means that no matter what is going on or what happens, that God is with us. And I think that surviving that, and my mother was a person of faith even up until the end. She was very joyful. And for me, faith is being joyful, not necessarily naive or chipper all the time, but joyful, and that God is always faithful no matter how we stumble or fall, that God is always faithful and that joy will always be there. And resurrection means transformation. And that's why the image of the butterfly is important to be, that no matter how much I may muck things up or someone else does, the transformation and hope is always there. And that is what faith is to me.
One of the reasons we started the Happy Hippie Jesus Show is that there is a lot of negativity in the world right now. Mm-hmm. And we hoped that stories like yours would inspire other people, apparently my family, because those are the ones listening, to be the light of Christ in the world, yes. That they can bring hope and change. So do you have a message, apparently for my family, about living out that call, being that change?
Absolutely. When I was 12 years ago, wanting to work in Latin America, I could never know that at the decade that this would all culminate and come to pass, that there would be so much political tension between Mexico and the United States. I could never have known that this would be going on. And so people tell me, you are absolutely crazy for wanting to go to Mexico and serve. You are never going to be accepted. This is never going to happen. But after praying and thinking about that a lot, maybe this has happened for just such a time as this. That what perfect time to be an instrument of peace than now. And as I have gone down there, I've met so many wonderful people who have blessed me and accepted me. And I guess my message would be that don't listen to the negativity and really have the faith and the hope, because there is a light, and you can be a daughter and a son of the light in spite of the darkness that is around.
Scripture tells us that in the darkest moments, when things seem worst, that's when God does God's most incredible work.
Absolutely.
And so I know Jeremy, the white butterfly, and I, we are praying for you and we're supporting you. We thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity.
I guess before we go, tell us about where people can find your book or when it's coming out, if they want to purchase it, and if anyone wants to connect with you, what are some good ways to do that?
Sure. The book will be coming out in early 2019, and I will go ahead and give my phone number and email, and this is my business information. Everyone from here to Mexico has this information, so feel free to give it out, and listeners, feel free to share it with someone else.
Yeah, Mom, you can share it with somebody, okay?
My cell phone number is 501-539-8136, and my email is Michelle Whitfield, MichellWhitfield, and that's all lowercase, @gmail.com. And anyone interested in the book, I can put them on a waiting list and let them know when the book is ready to be purchased.
Well, that's great. That's how Bill's mom and grandmother are going to connect with you. For Bill's kids, are you active on social media?
Yes, and I'm on WhatsApp, which is, as we say in Latin America, is gratis. And so people can connect with me that way. And Gmail and just regular texting and phone call.
Awesome. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks for coming and
sharing.
Thank you
so much.
to Bill's family and the 7 other people listening, thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, I hope that you'll tune back in for us next week. You can hear Bill agree to kiss an alligator, or apparently I can get a nickname, or someone might say Jesus wasn't a hippie. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Let me remind you, too, that one, rate us on iTunes so people beyond my family can discover us. And 2, if you would like to see me kiss an alligator, then support the Ozark Mission Project on Giving Tuesday, November 27. Have a great week.